Hello, thank you very much. I'm not an egotist, but let's just talk about me for a minute. My name is Evangelos Kypreos. Now, can I have just a quick show of hands? Who thinks that I come from Cyprus? Who thinks that I originate from Cyprus? Well, that's really interesting, because actually, I'm from Greece. Now, my great-grandfather came to this beautiful country and lived for a number of years. And when he went back to Greece, they called him the Cypriot, or Kypreos, and the name stuck. So it's not sometimes just what we know that's wrong, it's what we assume that's wrong as well. Now, what I want to talk about today is how we get plans wrong and how we get planning wrong, and also that word that we misuse so many times, strategy. Now, don't get me wrong, having a plan is really important. You must have a plan. But it's vital that you're flexible about it. It's vital that you're agile. Now, following a plan makes sense in the human mind. It feels really efficient. If I want to get from A to B, I want to take a straight line. Everyone knows that that is the fastest way from getting to A to B. And it works. You know, you kind of think, I'll put one foot in front of the other, and as long as I make all my steps, I'll get to B. If I know how far away B is as well, and I know how fast I can walk, I can also predict how long it will take for me to get there. Now, it's a good way of getting things done, this, but that's only if you're in an environment that doesn't change very much. Then you can kind of form a plan that's reasonably accurate. So if you want to build a house, you need to go and find an architect, you need to go and buy some land, you need to get the materials. You really need to go step-by-step process. And you go from A to B, and B, you've got your perfect dream house. Now, if any one of you has been involved in building a house or renovations, you'll know that it's not quite as easy as that. Sometimes things come up, and you might be extra costs, or it might take longer than you anticipated. But the truth is, with enough upfront planning and enough upfront analysis, you can eliminate a lot of that risk, a lot of that uncertainty. So if it's difficult to plan in a stable environment, then how much more difficult is it to plan in an unstable one? A world that changes all the time. So I've been working in the digital space for 15 years now. I've been working at government, local government, I've been working in publishing, and I've been working at startups. And I've experienced this situation many times. And I've seen a lot of companies really struggle with the pace of change in the modern world. Let's just talk about how quick that pace of change is. Now, the World Wide Web has only been around for 25 years, and really, it's only in the last 15 years that it's really taken off. And in that time, it's changed all sorts of interactions, and human interactions, and businesses as well. We buy things differently now. We go online, and we purchase things online. We talk to people via social media and via video conferencing. We've even stopped really buying physical records and videos. Actually, we prefer to watch things online. But let's just focus a little bit narrower and talk about tablets. I'm sure most of you have a tablet. Some of you might even have more than one at home. It's crazy to think that the tablet's only really been around for 4 years. Yes, there were tablets before the iPad in 2010, but in 2009, only 2 million were sold. This year, it's predicted that 250 million will be sold. That's just in 4 years. So what does this disruptive environment mean when we plan? It means that we don't know whether where we want to get to, whether B is still going to be relevant when we get there. So upfront, a lot of upfront meticulous planning comes with other drawbacks as well. So it's really difficult to estimate accurately when you're at the start of a project, when you're at the start of a plan, how long it's going to take and how much effort it's going to take for you to get to the end of it. And there's some really interesting evidence to support this. So this is the cone of uncertainty, and it's a software engineering term that has its roots in studies about project planning from the 1950s. Now, what those studies showed was that, on average, the final cost of a project, an engineering project or a construction project, on average, it was 100% more than what they planned for at the start. Or it was up to 50% less than what they planned for. Now, if you apply that to a sector that is very changeable, that's very unstable, that actually increases. And NASA did a very interesting study that showed that in something like software engineering, the change is up to 400% out or 75% less than what they originally thought. And it gets even worse. The cone is actually the best case scenario. If every single decision you make after you start a project is correct and you're constantly working to minimize uncertainty, that's how the cone works. But in reality, you carry uncertainty with you. And what that means is it looks more like a cloud of uncertainty. So what's the answer? Well, for me, the answer is adaptive and agile planning. It's about stopping following the plan and being agile about it. It means that you plan continuously instead of investing huge amounts of time and effort up front. Because up front, everything's unclear, everything's uncertain. You're not sure where you want to get to. In other words, what you want to do is start doing things and testing them, and then analyzing whether those tests have been successful or not. I think more importantly, it teaches you that it might not be that you want to get to, it might not be B that you want to get to, it might be somewhere else entirely, it might be X. Predictive plans are a luxury we really can't afford in modern society and the way the pace of change is happening. We see this in the business world every day, and we also see it in the public sphere as well. Now, NHS Connect for Health was a project started by the British government in 2005, by the British Health Authority. And the idea was that it would be a central repository for all medical records for all patients that any hospital and any doctor could get. Fantastic. The plan initially was that it would take 3 years and cost £2.3 billion. It actually got cancelled last year with a total cost from the National Audit Office of £12.4 billion. Now, people that actually worked in the project say that it cost more like £20 billion. Now, £20 billion is enough to eradicate world hunger for a year. That's how much was lost. And following a big upfront plan caused major issues for Motorola too. Motorola was at the height of its powers when it decided to build the Iridium satellite network in 1993. It aimed to create a network where anyone with a satellite phone could make a call, anywhere in the world, even if you're in the middle of the ocean. Technically, it succeeded. You can buy a satellite phone today and make a call from anywhere in the world, as long as you're outside. So if you've got a satellite navigation in your car, you'll know that if you're in a city with tall buildings, it doesn't work very well. And that's because a sat-nav requires direct line of sight with a satellite. The buildings block that line of sight, and it stops working. So Motorola had spent $5 billion creating a satellite system where people couldn't use it out of their house. Iridium was ready in 2008 after Motorola plowed $5 billion into it. Just 1 year later, Motorola declared bankruptcy. In the period between planning Iridium and actually executing it, things had changed tremendously. The terrestrial mobile phone network developed at a staggering pace, and people had a much better service where they could use their phone in their homes at a fraction of the cost. So what happened was that in 2011, Google bought Motorola Mobility. Now, Google is a perfect example of a company that plans in an agile way. In 2012, they had a real problem. There were lots of tablets being sold, but very few of them were Android. And that's because Android tablets at the time weren't very good, and everyone bought the Apple iPad. Now, consumers had become worried because the Android tablets weren't very good. So Google met with ASUS in 2012 and challenged the Taiwanese manufacturer to create a cost-effective tablet for them that delivered on the consumer needs that it had identified. They worked together, and just 5 months later, Google announced the Nexus 7. The thing was, it provided a great user experience for just $199, and it won loads of awards. In one fell swoop, Google had shown all other manufacturers what consumers expected of an Android tablet, and it also challenged Apple's dominance in the market. Did it work? Well, in 2011, Apple had 73% market share, and Android had just 17%. In 2013, 62% of all tablets sold ran Android, whereas Apple only sold 36%. It just goes to show how reacting quickly to consumer feedback can turn a tide. I think my favorite example of responding to change as opposed to following a plan is Blockbuster Video and Netflix. It's a really interesting story. Blockbuster Video took the video rental store and went massive with it. At the height of its powers in 2004, it had 9,000 stores and 60,000 employees worldwide. Less than 6 years later, it filed for bankruptcy, and in 2013, it closed. What happened, though? How could such a successful business topple so quickly? The answer is that it was following a plan, and it was ignoring external forces. Netflix, on the other hand, was formed in 1997 after the CEO, Reed Hastings, got a $40 fine from going to a Blockbuster Video for returning a video late. Now, we've all been there, haven't we? We've all had those arguments. So instead of opening thousands of stores and competing directly with Blockbuster, what it decided to do was send DVDs by post to people. And it did that by allowing people to go onto a website and decide what movies they wanted, and it would get delivered to their home. Now, there were no late fees, because you can keep the film for as long as you wanted. All you had to do was send it back if you wanted to get a new one. And then the landscape changed even more for Blockbuster. Cable and satellite TV companies started beaming movies directly to the TV. So you no longer even had to get off your sofa to watch the latest films. Then, a number of companies started renting movies via automated kiosks. Blockbuster suddenly had a very different type of competition. So what did it do about it? It devised a strategy and a plan. And the plan was that it would start its own rental kiosk business and its own DVD by post service. It followed its plan successfully. It created 10,000 kiosks, and it had a DVD by post service. But it didn't really offer anything different to what the competition already had. It got from A to B, but that didn't help it survive at all. It reacted to a changing environment just too slowly, and it thought that keeping true to its plan and keeping true to its strategy would be enough to help it survive. It wasn't. In the meantime, internet speeds got much, much faster, and Netflix saw the opportunity of online video streaming. Now, it launched a very basic service in 2007, and when you look at video streaming, it doesn't have a lot of overhead. You don't need an army of people packing DVDs. You don't need to pay the post office to send them across. You don't need warehouses to store them. And then it realized that actually the DVD market was shrinking. So it decided to split its business, its DVD by post business and its video streaming business. And it created a brand, or it announced that it would create a brand called Quickster. It was a really bad idea, and it was really badly implemented. And Netflix lost 800,000 subscribers in 1 month. Guess what the CEO did? He cancelled it immediately. He changed the plan. He didn't let following the plan or his pride stop him from making the right decision. But he was right about DVD subscribers dropping. Netflix went from 14 million subscribers in its heyday to 6 million now. It has, though, 40 million streaming subscribers, and this is growing every day. Now, Netflix looked at the landscape. It looked at the technologies available. It looked at millions of people downloading movies and TV illegally off the internet. And it realized that it had to pivot. It changed direction, and it did it quickly, constantly seeking feedback to provide a better service to its customers. And it hasn't stood still since. Netflix makes changes to its service all of the time. and it analyzes whether they work or not. If it doesn't, they found something out, and they can move on to the next idea. It also even analyzes the watching habits of its users and creates original TV that's won many, many awards. And this is really important. When Netflix fails, it fails fast. Failing fast is not bad. In fact, it could be a very, very good thing. Call it testing the water if you don't like the word failure. Spending years executing a plan that fails is unacceptable. It leads to employees hiding what's wrong. It stops them, that they highlight only the positives of the plan. It breeds a culture of fear and risk aversion. It creates an atmosphere that makes it really difficult to try out new ideas, especially in a fast-changing environment. And most importantly, it stops you questioning whether going from A to B is the right idea in the first place. Figuring out that you're on the wrong path early eliminates so much wasted effort. So instead of following a plan, always check that what you are doing is leading you towards your goals and your vision. Talk about your vision constantly and make it transparent. If people know what you're heading towards, they will help you get there. They will try harder for you to get there. If they don't, they'll just do their job. They'll just do their job role. And don't be afraid to constantly question your goals either. Are they still valid? Is the vision still right for you? Has the landscape changed? Is there a new competitor out there? And don't just wait to be disrupted. Be the disruptor. Use new technologies to your advantage. Now, by taking small calculated risks and testing whether your innovations work or not, you'll learn a lot about your consumer. And that is whether you work for a multinational, a startup, or a restaurant. It works across the board. Don't just follow the plan. Otherwise, in 2 years, you might end up in the middle of nowhere. Be open and agile instead, and you might not end up where you plan to be, but you will end up where you need to be. Thank you very much.